Hello, everybody. This is Todd Nielsen, one of the volunteer organizers for the Catalyzing the Future event. I am excited to be here today to tell you we are only 2 days away from Catalyzing the Future, and it is a free virtual live streaming event that is going to be starting on Wednesday, September the 30th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., and I hope you're able to join us for the day. The idea behind the event is that we are going to have a plethora of interdisciplinary speakers around the topic of how do we build better, more sustainable futures. So as a preview to that, we are doing these catalyzing conversations with subject matter experts from around the world. And today we're greeted by Jim Hamilton and the event founder, Alhir, who I'm going to bring into the channel right now. And hopefully we'll have a little clearer stream than we are having with me and my video here this morning. So let me go ahead and bring those gentlemen in.
Hello.
Oh.
Well, yeah, we might. Go ahead, Cy.
Todd, we're seeing your mouth move, my good friend, but we're not hearing you.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. Now you're coming in.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason, StreamYard has really slowed up on me here. I'm not sure what happened exactly.
Not to worry. Maybe we'll jump into the conversation with Jim.
Please do.
Excellent. So we have the great opportunity to be with Jim, who I've known for some time. And Jim, I would love for you to introduce yourself and let the world know who you are a little bit, and we'll dive in.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk in this conversation. Hopefully I can give some insights and wisdom through my experience to the world out there. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I've been working in IT for a little bit, about 15, 20 years, somewhere in that realm. Continuously in IT, believe it or not. I didn't make any U-turns or sidetracks throughout that. I was right to college, right to do what I was supposed to be doing, I guess. Started off in a variety of different roles. I started off in QA. I've been doing development for a while as well, through a lot of different roles that I've had in the past. Led development teams, I've done project management, and eventually kind of led me to my long-term career path, which I'm doing today, is product management, where I kind of see is the greatest passion I've had, at least through all the roles that I've been had the opportunity to work within. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Excellent, my friend. Well, welcome all around. And one of the key things is, as you and I have worked together over the years and have known each other, is the focus on value and product management, and especially in a world like this, Jim, where everything's chaotic and people are trying to make sense of things. How do we approach value from a product management perspective, amongst others?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different across different products. I think whether you're working on Spotify, which has a completely different track in terms of value, or you're working on something like Salesforce, or the product I'm working on today with Call Potential, which is kind of a mini Salesforce for the self-storage industry. Value can be quite different in how you calculate it, how you focus on it. I like to just take a step back and think about the users of the system, and any product that I'm working on. I really want to understand what's their emotional drivers, what's their objective that they're looking to get out of the system. Just start at the simplest kind of approach there, and then if you're dead focused on that, you can build on all the other aspects of value in terms of calculating it, in terms of the financials, in terms of the success of the product. You really just need to take a step back and set yourself on that foundation. Emotional drivers for something like Spotify, they just want to turn it on, they want to relax, they want to feel good, they want to escape the world. That's a totally different emotional driver than something like a Salesforce, where you're working as an employee in an office and you're kind of just, this application is kind of plopped in your lap, and it said, hey, use it to make your do your job. And users are have a lot different mindset about a product like that versus a product that they choose to use on a day-to-day basis. So, what is their objective for a product like that? I mean, they basically want a product that's the least intrusive to their workday as possible. They want a product to basically do their job for them. If you really want to get down to it, it's all about productivity. They don't really need to be in the product enjoying it, every moment of it. They want it to work, they want it to be reliable, and they want to be able to get their job done and move on. So that's kind of, I've worked on some B2B products, B2C products, mostly on the B2B side or enterprise products. So a lot of my background and experience has been on kind of those products that focus in and hone in a lot on productivity and automation, ways that we can do our job smarter and better and more effective. So yeah, just taking a step back, that's what I would say is the starting point is knowing your products, knowing your users, knowing and understanding their drivers, their emotional drivers, their emotional connection to the product. And if you focus on that all the time, you really can't go wrong. All the rest will fall into place.
Very, very well said, Jim. And as you kind of look at the world and the degree of change, and I'll say, I love the way that you're describing the emotional aspects of drivers, the emotional drivers. And in a world where there is, pre-COVID, in COVID, whatever post-COVID might be, if there is such a thing as a post-COVID, with the degree of variation around the emotional drivers, what are you seeing out there? And what are some of the thoughts on how to approach that degree of variation?
Yeah, I mean, now you're bringing a lot of these workers in their homes, so connectivity to those products, through the web, desktop applications start to kind of, are pushed out more. Everybody wants accessibility into their systems, any which way that they can get it, through mobile devices, through tablets, on the run. So I think a lot of the pushes, at least just my perception, a lot of the pushes are going to be around accessibility to the products and being able to perform essential tasks, while you're distracted with everyday life, whether it's, picking up the kids from school and being able to quickly check on a report or open a report up, or maybe complete a simple task. Those things are going to make and break the difference for a product in a post-COVID world versus a pre-COVID world. So it's the same drivers emotionally. They want the product to not. They don't want to have to sit in that product all the time to get their job done. They don't want to have to work hard to get the information that they need. It just all needs to be accessible to them quickly and efficiently. And in the post-COVID world, we just need to expand that accessibility out into different devices and in different situations. So we just got to be more on top of our game, I think, than ever before. Those drivers have always been there in terms of accessibility, but I think they're emphasized a lot higher. People aren't sitting at their desks all the time and being able to work day to day. They have to be able to be mobile.
And I appreciate the way you're describing it, Jim, in terms of expansion of that accessibility, and it's a more of a heightened sense, if you will, than anything else.
Yeah.
The question that comes to my mind, and I'll definitely let Todd here jump in a minute, but the question that immediately comes to my mind is the product management world really kind of being attuned to what's happening out there? Are you seeing product managers respectfully really achieving that degree of attunement and adapting their style for managing their products and offerings?
Yeah, I mean, just speaking around the product that I have, I think it's just something we're all still coming to terms with a little bit, and it's still a learning process for everybody. But the focus on accessibility and having to be remote working, being able to tap into their business systems easily and effectively, that's like an essential now. And it like I said, it had always been there, but it just, I don't think it's different than what the drivers were before. It's just made it more important and more of an urgency. It's kind of like jumped up on the priority list of a lot of product managers. Is now now you have to do these things, if your
Yeah.
product's going to survive, especially if we're going to live in a world like this for a longer period of time.
So we should be re-examining to the guidance that you might offer.
Absolutely.
We should be re-examining what is valuable and what are the nuances of value relative to presuming an old way.
Because the way people are using the system is different, right? And what I was talking about with those emotional drivers, if you're using the system differently and you're in different situations, your emotional drivers are going to probably be a little different. Again, if you focus in on that core kind of aspect of the emotional drivers of your users and really understanding what their objectives are of the product, your backlog will naturally adjust to the new world fine, but that has changed. So a reevaluation, you might think it, but a reevaluation of that is necessary.
Well said. Todd, any thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, no, I think this is fascinating. I don't get to talk to a bunch of product managers in my day to day, so I appreciate this. As far as what you were saying, that the considerations are the same, only more so now for product management, as well as thinking about sort of some of the emotional drivers. Like, I'm familiar with doing user journeys and sort of understanding how someone can become emotionally involved with a product, and its use over time. I guess, do you have any guidance or thoughts for new product managers who are just entering the space, as far as how they can be better attuned? Is there some thinking or approaches that you've used maybe in some of your mentoring of more junior product managers?
Yeah, I mean, I think some things that at least I've learned, and again, I haven't been doing it an extensively long time or anything, so my experience is only limited to that. But a lot of times you come in as a product manager into a new role, and the business or the marketing team or the sales team kind of lays in front of you what their perception is of everything, and it's sometimes it's a nice, easy way to kind of say, okay, yeah, I don't have to do all this hard work with the users. I don't really have to engage with users. I don't have to build these tracks with the user community. So sometimes you can find yourself falling back on the folks who have to work with the users on a day-to-day basis. And but what I would say is try to find those inroads with the user community. That was a challenge for me working in my current role right now, and we're starting to focus a lot more on how can we build those inroads with the user community. How can we do that effectively so we can really hear it directly from them, and it's not it's not this game of telephone, so to speak. So I think it's a lot more, your products are going to be a lot more powerful if you can actually connect directly with the user communities, as opposed to having kind of a proxy through sales or marketing or through some other business entity. As a product owner in these days, you have to be as closely connected to the user community as you can. So a lot of organizations don't naturally do that. I think maybe the product owner roles are a little bit newer, and people are still as much as Agile has been around there a long time, people don't practice it in the ways that we probably have been accustomed to, that knowing the high effectiveness of those practices. So don't take try to connect with the users directly. Try to see if there's inroads that you can build on your own, bridges that you can build on your own that are outside of the other entities in your organization that have those direct communications with users, because that will create your own perception of what's important, and you can then hear the diversity of thought from the other areas, and you can have some sort of a comparison.
I really appreciate that. And I think the idea, and this is something that I run into in the space in which I consult, really wanting to make sure that you're getting qualitative over just quantitative kind of insight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that emphasis you've placed on a personal connection to those user communities and understanding what it is that they want. That requires conversation and connection rather than just collecting data points, right?
Yep. And it's not easy, especially if you have a strong, if you have groups within the organization that have really strong user connections and stuff, it's not easy for you to kind of build your own roads. So again, that's a struggle I have today, but to have that in the back of your head as your long-term goal, to establish that, I think starting off and as a new product manager, that would be the one thing that I would say you try to focus in on early.
Very well said again. So this poses an interesting question, especially as we think about qualitative and quantitative awareness, if you will, of what's happening around us. In a more chaotic environment, Jim, especially now, in a more chaotic environment and a greater degree of unpredictability, do you, from your experience, guide us to say, hey, lean more qualitative versus quantitative, or lean more quantitative versus qualitative, or what are your thoughts there? I mean, it's a very, very interesting question that comes up in a multitude of conversations.
Wow. I think it's always a balance between the two, to be honest. I wouldn't choose one or another. I think, yes, I think backlogs are changing frequently. There's, for certain products, I mean, some products might be more constant, that have already had a remote, aspect to them, like Spotify and all those, those guys are already their products are conditioned for these types of situations. So they're not going to see much upheave in terms of their backlogs, but other products which were focused more on enterprises which had a strong in office presence are now going to have to really think about how to adjust things. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's a balance between the two, but that's kind of my take on it.
Definitely. And what's interesting is if we look at it, especially from a customer's experience perspective, and we flip it, by the time we measure quantitatively some aspect of that experience, it might be outdated. But if we get it qualitatively, just based on the degree of change and what we're measuring, it might be more accurate. How actionable it is becomes, of course, an integration and balancing act, like you're saying, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, like how to kind of calculate value is always an interesting thing. I remember when I was working at Nielsen, I was like, okay, well, the users might be really energized about this. I have a big NPS score from it. But my manager wrote on the wall, he just wrote a $sign and he says, just focus on that. That's it. And I was like, well, that's kind of where I was saying before. I personally, if you're focusing on where you think you're going to save the most money or make the most money, and you hone in too much on that, you do lose sight of where the users come into play a lot. It's like, don't focus on the money first, focus on the users first, and then verify that the money is there based on that. So it's like it always, some people go the reverse and they just start looking where they can cut costs, where they can make money, and a lot of times that doesn't necessarily serve the users best interest always. And if you're serving the user, and it might be short-lived, you might save some money here or there, but you're shortchanging some of the needs of the users, or you might delivering products that you can charge a lot of money for and that are needed, but maybe maybe that just complicates some other, who knows. I'm just throwing some things out there, but in general, I always like to focus on what the user's really feeling and needing, and then in terms of measuring success, then kind of going through those motions of how can we calculate success. Is an NPS scores, is it a reduction in product, an increase in productivity, so a reduction in cost? Is it something we can charge additional fees for because it's providing a new feature or functionality that they don't have today that's going to help them increase their conversion rates, or wherever you're measuring?
I think that's a key lesson, Jim. Forgive me, Todd, if you were going to say something. I just want to kind of...
I was just going to say that I think that connects really strongly to the human-powered element of
exactly.
The event, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of product managers, that are just focused on the numbers, and they're focused on the $signs, and they get tunnel vision a bit with that. because they get a lot of pressure from management. Management's going to put in like an extreme amount of pressure, especially in larger organizations, about cutting costs. And don't tell me unless it's cutting costs, or don't talk about it unless it's got a projection to make money. And then you feel a pressure to focus in on that too much, and you lose sight of your users.
Exactly. And Todd, if we extend it even further, I mean, this is one of the reasons, as Jim and I started to have the conversation, I said, Jim, it would be great for us to get into a conversation here around catalyzing the future, is because really, when you think about value, it's more than dollars and cents, right? There's a human component, right? There's a societal component, exactly as the conference is emphasizing, right? There's a business component as well as a technology component. So it's I'll say value transcends the specifics in many, many ways. And that's, I mean, I think you both know me well enough how much I have not an addiction, a commitment to Starbucks. When I'm on the road, I'm willing to pay 3 times the price of what they're charging, because I'm on the road and that gives me a sense of comfort. But when I'm at home, right, it's a different sense of comfort. I'm willing to pay the regular price, if you will. So if you look at the cost and the price factor, it's one aspect, but if you truly look at the experience aspect, it's a whole different value proposition.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really that's a great insight, Cy, and I think one of the other things that struck me with this, to build on that human element of the software design. I think if we look at some large scale products like Facebook or some of the major social media platforms, their value driver is addictiveness of the application. And it tends to put people into a category of being a consumable rather than something that is actually the driver of value, for the product overall. So I get excited hearing about sort of like we need to think about those human elements of it. And the 4 categories that Cy mentions are not mutually exclusive, to each other too. Like, we can't have something that's just an awesome thing for humans if it doesn't drive some kind of business value.
Yeah, exactly. Unless there's some charitable focus to it. I like when you said Facebook. I was thinking about things I read about Facebook earlier. I mean, they were so resistant to put ads and all of these things that they're willing to sacrifice a lot of dollars to continue to build that emotional connection with the users, because they knew it would come later. So yeah, exactly. It's not always about dollars and cents in terms of value. There's building a user base, or that connection with Facebook, almost at addiction, kind of what you were describing. Like, get their foot in there and get them so used to the product that they never want to go anywhere else, and then we can start throwing some ads at them, make some money. So yeah, there's a longer term game sometimes that you maybe have to draw up for value. You might not get value 1-2 years. We might even consider any financial value because we think it'll lead to XYZ 3 or 4 years down the road. So it's not always I deliver a feature and then value is going to be there right away.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things is taking that integrative viewpoint. It takes a lot of discipline, right? Because you can also say, hey, we're going to go ahead and respectfully give everything away, in which case you're going to put yourself out of business at that point. Taking an integrative viewpoint from a business side, technology side, a human side, and a societal side really creates a very different
I think there's an example of that, and I forgot the company's name, but they were selling movie tickets. I forgot exactly the company, but they were selling them at such a discounted rate that they were losing money on each transaction. And they felt, okay, we're eventually gonna get these customers addicted to it, and they're gonna love our platform. And they sold millions and millions and millions of these tickets, but each ticket they sold, they were losing money. And then they're okay, let's turn it up. And then they put the price up just a little bit, and then everybody vanished. And it wasn't the platform wasn't what people cared about. They just cared about the price, and they missed that. They thought, okay, if I can just get my name out there from a platform, there's going to be this connection to it, and there's going to be this loyalty to it. But they're just purchasing movie tickets, and they missed the boat on that. They might have, I don't know, but that was I remember somebody was telling me about that company maybe a few years ago. I have to look it up, but there's miscalculations out there that what we were talking about of like taking a loss for a longer term value. If you miscalculate that could be quite dangerous. So you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to propose solutions like that.
Very well said. And I think there's, if I grab a few of the things that we've been talking about, one is it's integrative and holistic. Two is it's experiential. People experience value and very keenly. It is also contextual as to where you are, what you are, who you are, kind of all the W's. And then additionally, and I love the way you just both described it, there's a timing factor, right? There's a time to contribute and give back before you ask, if you will. It isn't, and if you increase a cent, the price, let's say, if you increase it by a cent at the wrong time, it has a detrimental effect. But if you increase it by 10 cents at the right time, it has an appropriate effect. That's a win-win. So it's very, very, value is much more nuanced than I think most people give.
Yeah, it's if you look it up online, it's okay. Your inputs are less than your outputs are greater than your inputs, and that's about all you get when you're reading online and how to calculate it and all that. And that in itself, that's not easy to calculate from a product perspective. But you're right, needing to maybe outline all of those various factors, will be a very powerful proposition for some. A big feature or function that you're going to look to implement.
So I have a question. I have a question for Jim and Todd, if you will. I'm going to throw it out there and see what you think. I always talk about any relationship, any personal relationship, any professional relationship. I talk about it in terms of return on investment, right? Jim, you and I have a relationship, right? There is a return based on your investment. There's going to be a return based on my investment. Then I look for the win-win. It's a win. To my mind, it's a win-win or a lose-lose. So the question I have, kind of with that statement being made, are we moving into an era where that return on something, return on humanity, return on contribution, return on being a good citizen is really a new era? And I mean, do you see that happening? Are we entering a new era of that thought process?
That's an interesting question, huh? So you're saying that you think the dynamics are going to change a bit in this new era? Maybe.
And I'm asking, are we? Because I mean, there's a part of me that says, is there a return on humanity, right? Is there a return on employee engagement, whatever employee means to you? Is there a return on societal contribution? So that notion of return on investment, the word investment is much richer in a new world versus an old world.
Yeah, well, I mean, businesses are going to be businesses and they're going to want to make money, right? And I think investment in humanity and all of those things, they know because that's what people care about, right? And they're going to make money off of it. So, Amazon's not, I think I saw something about Amazon going zero carbon or something by 2060, some advertisement about that, and the only reason they're going to do that, they're not doing that. I maybe Jeff Bezos is a great guy and he loves humanity that much, but I'm thinking in my head, he's going to make money off of that somehow. He's going to draw people in because there's maybe a bad perception about all these, cars driving everywhere, delivering stuff. And, if he could do that and no one would care about it, he would continue to do that in my guess. But, the investment back into humanity, he's realizing that the dynamics of people's mindsets are changing and they care about those types of things and they might make decisions on a brand because of that. So you're right, businesses are being attuned to that now and they're making decisions based on that. But in my mind, it's still business, and it's the reason is because there's a financial income or financial benefit in the end to them. So we don't want to like give the corporations more than they deserve in some of those things. But I think the people in the world are demanding a little bit more out of these corporations, and they're adjusting their roadmaps accordingly to that.
Yeah. Todd, I would love your comment, but can I add one other thing, if you don't mind, just ever so quickly? One of the emphasis that, and Jim, I appreciate what you said because we are who we are, and especially, I mean, as I always like to say, the human animal can be the most destructive in its natural habitat and can be the most magnificent in its natural habitat. Perhaps capitalism is capitalism, and I, for one, I'm a capitalist. I will not discount that. But I think where the shift is occurring is because the reality now that we're experiencing, we're truly being more attuned to look for the win-win or the lose-lose. In my mind, there's no win-lose. It's either win-win or lose-lose. So we've got to find that balance of capitalism that creates, exactly to your point, that it's going to be a profitable for Jim, profitable for Cy, profitable for Todd.
Yeah, that is,
Yeah. And I think now the conditions are almost forcing us into that. It's just the reality. So and this is why I love, especially, I'll say, Jim, your perspective, because your world surrounds value from a product management side. So I do appreciate that. Todd, please chime in. Forgive me for
No, not at all. I totally agree, and I think the only thing that I would add to it is I would say that the catalyst, if you will, for thinking in terms of a return on humanity for organizations is, certainly from a workforce standpoint. I think executive leaders have seen that, my goodness, I don't have to have people in an office to be productive. I don't have to have it. So there's an undercutting of some of those assumptions about what was driving value or what was giving value. And I think that it leads to a whole domino effect of other questions about the value chain and what's there. So I think there is an opportunity to realize a greater return on humanity through that, whether the leadership of those organizations will recognize it and make themselves the better for it is the question in my mind.
Yeah. And I think there's a brilliant answer to it. Mother Nature will have her way, and the market conditions will have her way with them one way or another. So, it's just a matter of time. It really is. I know, respectful, I know we've taken up a lot of your time, Jim. Likewise, any sort of last thoughts, parting thoughts, my good friend? It's always a pleasure with you.
Oh, no, I mean, I feel like I learned something out of this conversation today, so I'm happy about that. I mean, in general, like you said, the world is changing exponentially. Value is changing exponentially, like you mentioned. Its meaning is evolving, and we just have to be on our toes. We have to live in this quicksand, because that's what it is. The corporate world is quicksand these days. It's not solid ground anymore. Just be in tune to that. And I think having conversations like this with people within your industry, attending sessions, workshops, all of these ways you can start changing your mindset, molding your mind into kind of optimizing it in a way that you could be successful, in this new future. So
excellent. Definitely have a pleasure having you. Always.
Okay.
Always a pleasure. All yours, my friend Todd. Forgive me for interrupting again.
Not at all. And Jim, it was wonderful to meet you. Looking forward to future conversations and for you to be a part of the September 30th event coming up in just 2 days, amazingly. If you are just running into this video for the first time, the Catalyzing Conversations are part of the Catalyzing the Future event, and you can sign up for this free global live streaming event on catalyzingthefuture.com. You can join us for a day of conversations. It runs from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time. There will be 3 concurrent live streams with multiple panels, great insights. It's going to be Jim and bunches of other people, who are involved with this, with great ideas, subject matter expertise from across the spectrum of learning, and both analytical and spiritual in nature. So please join us for that day. And in the meantime, look for more Catalyzing Conversations leading up to the event. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Cy.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.